Hey gang, it's your buddy Platt back with another Spirit Series video. Today we're continuing on our other category of the spirit world. We're going to focus in on absinthe. What is absinthe? Absinthe is a distilled, highly alcoholic beverage that is anise flavored, contains grand wormwood, green anise, fennel, and other botanicals. A good comparison is gin. They're both botanical based spirits. They're both generally produced with raw spirits macerated with the botanicals, then redistilled. Gin is a juniper-based spirit. Absinthe is a wormwood-based spirit. Traditionally, absinthe is green in color. That green color comes from the chlorophyll of the plants that are macerated in the spirit. It is also known as the green fairy. That is a homage to the stories of hallucinations while taking absinthe. We'll get into that little story later, but that's all it is a story. The predecessors to absinthe came about roughly 1500 BC in Greece. The Greeks were using a wormwood extract for medicinal purposes, and that's how a lot of these things get started, is medicinal purposes. They also at the time were consuming wormwood infused wines, again for medicinal purposes. We just happily eventually found a great cocktail out of them. The modern day distilled version that we know of today did not really come about till the late 1700s in Switzerland. It was a French doctor that came up with the modern recipe. It was produced as a medicinal elixir. Again, these things are done for health purposes generally at first. The first wave of popularity for absinthe was based off medicinal purposes. French troops would consume absinthe along with a quantity of quinine to help prevent malaria. We talked about malaria in the gin video, when the British troops would drink their gin and tonics with quinine in there, again, to prevent malaria. So that brought about the first wave of popularity. The peak of absinthe's popularity came in the late 1800s and early 1900s in the cafe and bar scenes of Paris, also to a lesser extent New Orleans. New Orleans highly influenced by the French. The artist class of the day would consume absinthe in these cafes and what have you. People like Hemingway, Picasso, Van Gogh, Edgar Allan Poe, just to name a few. It was also about this time that the stories of hallucination and the whole green fairy thing kind of came about. The artist class at the time did not want to kill a good story, so they did not squash those rumors, which unfortunately kind of helped lead to the demise of absinthe. At its peak in the late 1800s, early 1900s, absinthe had a few things working against it. First and foremost was the stories of hallucinations. Also, there was rumors that would cause seizures. There's a little science behind that, a compound called thejune that is in wormwood. We'll visit on that a little bit later. That was not obviously helping absinthe as far as how it was considered in the proper world. Also at the time, the French wine industry had just come out of the phylloxera epidemic and they were having a hard time. A lot of people in France had changed their drinking habits from wine to absinthe. So absinthe became kind of public enemy #1 to the French wine industry. And last but not least, in parts of Europe and especially in the US, there was a temperance movement. People were wanting to ban the sales of alcohol, public lewdness, public drunkenness. There was a battle for that. So between the three, bans of absinthe started to come about. First in Belgium in 1906, in Switzerland in 1910. Here in the US, the ban came in place in 1912, and finally in France in 1914. You add a couple of world wars and prohibition on top of that, and absinthe had just been kind of thrown away in the dustbin of history, just been kind of forgotten about. If you found older cocktail books, you might see some references, or of course if you read Hemingway or Poe, Arbor, you would hear about this, but it just kind of disappeared. It wasn't until the 1990s in the UK that a revival had come about. The UK had never formally banned absinthe, even though at the time there was no absinthe production. They were able to import it and they found absinthe production of all places Czechoslovakia. The Iron Curtain had fallen. They needed some industry. Absinthe came in handy. They started importing it to the UK. That led to more people being a little more curious. Hey, what's this absinthe thing that was around 100 years ago? And this, that, and the other. Luckily for us, cooler minds had prevailed. People realized, well, the whole hallucination thing was just a ruse. It was silly. And bans started to be dropped. Here in the U.S., it was 2007, finally allowed for the importation and production of absinthe. Here in the U.S., there's no clear category or legal definition for absinthe. It's kind of considered a liqueur, even though there's no sugar added to the spirit. That's kind of how it's defined here. There's no clear definition like tequila or cognac has per se. As far as the dangerous side effects, there's been no study that's shown any, hallucinations or whatever. Like I said, the compound thajune that's in wormwood has been shown at extreme concentrations to have a potential of causing seizures. There's only been one known incident, a death, I believe, traced to thajune, and that was someone that wasn't drinking absinthe, that consumed a wormwood extract with a high level of thajune in it. So what you get here is not dangerous. That being said, here in the U.S., the absinthe that we do get is thajune free. So no worries about that. Again, you're not going to hallucinate on it. The side effects are the same as just drinking too much alcohol. And absinthe tends to be higher in alcohol. Most of the time you're going to buy it at around 100 proof or a little bit higher. You probably won't find anything below 90 proof. It's just a higher proof spirit. There are two main styles of absinthe. There's distilled, where they take the base spirit is a grape spirit. In absinthe, it's not a neutral grain spirit. You take base grape spirit, macerate the different botanicals, and then redistill it. There's also what they call cold mix, where you take the raw grape spirit, macerate the botanicals, and then just filter it, similar to a compound gin. Good way to think about it. The particular spirit we're going to try today is the Parnasse Absinthe Superiore. Comes in at 100 proof and from Italy. Italy was one of the first countries to kind of get back in the absinthe business. They dropped their ban on absinthe in 1992. Absinthe is a little different of a spirit. It's not consumed neat or on the rocks. The modern day mixologist does use it in several cocktails, and it was used in the original Sazerac recipe, but for the most part it's consumed with sugar water. 5 parts sugar water, 1 part absinthe. If I had a traditional absinthe rig, you would have a slotted spoon that you would put over the glass, stick a sugar cube and run cold water through that sugar cube into the absinthe till you get to that roughly 5-to-1 ratio, and it would turn out milky. It would change the absinthe from this green to kind of a milky, and it's consumed like that. I do not own an absinthe rig. I will never drink that much absinthe or it would be worth my time. So what I did is I had some sugar in the raw package, just mixed it with some cold water, and we're going to try it like that. So let's give her a try. Whew, that is potent. Very strong anise on the nose. Let's pour our cold water in. All right. And see, we kind of got now a light green, milky kind of color. Good gosh, that's licorice. That's liquid licorice is the smell. Let's give her a try. Liquid licorice, yeah. Not too bad. With the amount of water in there, we cut her down. This is not too harsh. I can definitely see how you could sip on this for a while, end up having too many. I'm not a huge licorice guy, so I don't know how many of these I would consume, but very unique flavor. I think the mixology opportunities are great with this flavor. Definitely now it's got me in the mood for an old school Sazerac. I love bourbon, so any excuse to drink a Sazerac would be great. Yeah, overall not too bad. Very unique. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.